Joining me today is Anne-Sophie Corbeau, Senior Gas Expert at the International Energy Agency based in France. She'll be speaking at IIR's Southeast Asia Australia Offshore Conference on the 5th to 7th of October 2011 in Darwin. Anne-Sophie, many thanks for joining me today.
Good morning.
First of all, what has been the global impact of the US shale gas revolution?
Well, actually, I think you have to make the distinction between the regional impact and the global impact, because nobody really expected the US gas revolution. You have to consider that over the past 5 years, the US shale gas production in the United States has increased from 20 BCM to 140 BCM. So now US shale gas production accounts for about 20% of total US gas production, and that was completely unexpected. Everybody thought that the US was going to import a lot of LNG, and people have built LNG regasification terminals accordingly. So now you have a lot of regasification terminals which are not used at all in the United States. And for people looking at the United States as an import market, well, this has been a disappointment. People, for example, in Qatar were looking at the US in order to export further volumes, and actually this is not happening at all. So they have to divert these LNG volumes to other markets. So that's the first regional impact. Also now the US and Canada as well have been considering exporting LNG, and this is completely new. Nobody before thought that the US would be exporting LNG apart naturally from Alaska, but this is also a fundamental change. In terms of investments as well, there is a radical change because people are not really looking at investing in regasification terminals anymore. There is already a lot in the United States, and well, there is a little bit in Canada as well, but these regasification terminals are largely underutilized. So this is for the regional aspect. Now when we are looking at the global market, this is where it becomes a little more interesting, because the US shale gas production really increased in 2008-2009, exactly when we had the global economic crisis, which of course had a dramatic impact on global gas demand. So global gas demand declined by 2.5%, and at the same time you had shale gas production in the US increasing and a lot of LNG arriving to the market. So this created oversupply that we also call the gas glut. And this had an impact not only on the fact that a lot of LNG was available on the market for Europe as well as for Asia, and well, this LNG sometimes a difficulty to find a new home. Moreover, it has also an impact on spot prices. In the US and also in the United Kingdom, spot prices were divided by 3 between the end of 2008 and early 2009. So it was a dramatic decline of spot prices. And well, the final impact is, of course, the fact that now everybody is looking at shale gas in many countries and many regions, in Australia, in Asia, in Europe, and also in Africa, in the Middle East, and in Latin America.
And can you run me through a bit more about the recent market trends in North America and Europe from previously gas scarcity to abundance?
Well, gas scarcity was really in 2008, where everybody was trying to find new supplies because demand was still increasing at that time. And then, well, suddenly there was a lot of LNG and unconventional gas available to the market, and this is what created the oversupply of gas. And actually for some producers it was really bad news because they had difficulties to sell their gas. This is particularly relevant for producers such as Russia or Turkmenistan or Canada. Well, now we are seeing the trend turning again because last year in 2010 we had a very important recovery of gas demand in the world, plus 7.4%. So this is about 230 billion cubic meters. This is about 3 times what Qatar export in terms of LNG. So this is quite a lot. Looking ahead, we do expect gas demand to continue to increase at a quite heavy pace, about 2.4% over the next 6 years. So that means that markets are going to tighten again. Well, this is about the supply and demand balance. Now, what also the shale gas revolution in the United States has proven is that there is a lot of gas available. Gas that, well, nobody really thought would be available or not at the prices at which it is produced today. People usually have in mind the 60 years of proven gas reserves. This is what everybody, when they are talking about reserves, thinks about. Now, these are the proven gas reserves. When you are looking at recoverable gas reserves, conventional, we are already doubling the 60 years to about 120 years. But when you are adding unconventional gas, and not only shale gas, but also tight gas and coal by methane, then you are reaching about 250 years of current gas production. So it means that we have a lot of gas available for the world.
And what will be the implications for the Australian market?
Well, the implication for the Australian market is twofold. I would say that first of all, a lot of new demand is emerging in the Asian region. China has proven to be a market where demand is growing very, very fast, plus 20% on average. And now China is already consuming more than any OECD country except the United States. So this is already 107 billion cubic meters. And China could see its demand doubling over the next 5 years. This is not entirely implausible. So it means that China is going to import a lot of gas, both pipeline and LNG, because its domestic production is not going to be sufficient. And part of this LNG is going to come, of course, from Australia. Part of it is already contracted. We're also looking at the other markets, such as, for example, Japan and Korea. Well, Korea has been a fast-growing market over the past years and is going to continue to do so. And Japan, because of the Fukushima disaster, is going to need additional gas supplies to replace the missing nuclear generating capacity. There are also other markets to consider when we are looking at the Asia-Pacific region. Indonesia, Malaysia, but also Vietnam, Thailand. All these countries are going to, sooner or later, import LNG. So there is also a new demand for LNG in this region. And this is, of course, where Australia is particularly important because a lot of LNG is going to come from Australia. And in our very recently published report, the medium-term oil and gas market report, we called Australia the new Qatar. So I hope you don't get offended, but it means that by 2016, definitely Australia is going to be the second LNG exporter in the world, and we foresee that by 2020 it might actually be the first LNG exporter in the world.
What do you think are the long-term prospects for unconventional gas?
It really depends at which region you are looking at. Of course, in North America, unconventional gas is going to continue to grow, albeit environmental considerations are becoming more and more important. In the other regions, it really depends at which unconventional gas you are looking at. For example, I would say that Australia is a leader for the moment in terms of unconventional gas development because of the CBM to LNG project, and it might actually look a little bit later at shale gas. And then when we are looking at Asia, so China, India, Indonesia, these countries are first of all looking at CBM and then looking at potentially shale gas. In Europe, the future for unconventional gas is more uncertain because there are a lot of issues, in particular environmental issues and local opposition, which are quite tricky to overcome. Well, for example, France has recently banned on hydraulic fracturing, so this is going to be more difficult in Europe for unconventional gas to really be developed. In other specific countries, Argentina, for example, there is a lot of potential. We could see a development, but again, in this kind of countries, you need, the infrastructure to be in place, and you need also to have the right price, because unconventional gas is not always very cheap to develop.
You're speaking at IR's Southeast Asia Australia Offshore Conference, which takes place on the 5th to 7th of October 2011 in Darwin. What would you like the delegates to gain from your presentation, and what will be some of the key messages?
I think my objective is really to give a kind of global perspective of the market, where we are now, where we are heading to, and what is happening not only globally but also regionally. And in particular for the Australian Asian market, it's important to understand the importance of Australia versus its potential customers in Asia, and in terms of unconventional gas, what it can bring to the market, and also where the further gas supplies can come from. and also to understand that while all regions are not going to see the same future in terms of unconventional gas production, and what are the key challenges to overcome for shale gas production to be as successful as in the United States. And in this respect, I think we have identified 4 very important criteria. The first is to understand how much gas there is, and indeed outside the United States there is still very little knowledge about the exact resources in terms of unconventional gas. Then you need to have the companies with the right expertise. You need also to overcome a certain number of market issues, such as, well, having the infrastructure in place, facing local opposition, facing also environmental issues, and finally also you need to have the right price in the market so that you can really produce unconventional gas, which in some cases is more expensive than conventional gas.
Anne-Sophie Corbeau, many thanks for your time today.
Thank you.